Chapter 1. On to the New World. 2 years later. Since then, I've continued to train my body with everyone, under the watchful eyes of Elena. I'm now 5 years old and my height has grown to match it. I'm studying magic with Noelle and teaching Dee the basics of adventuring. I've created a few spells that weren't in the book and their progress is rather well. I've been having mock battles with Deep. Since he's a former adventurer, he's very strong, but there are always a few openings in self-taught styles, and so I beat him. I felt bad, but the sight of him being comforted by Noelle was refreshing. Since the chance to surprise me with lessons the next day was lost, Deep felt that his pride as an educator was hurt. Though he is likely to get stronger if he practices, he says that he'd like to become a cook, which I think regrettable. He actually has quite the touch for cooking, though it's regrettable. I'll be pleased if he can learn to cook food from my previous life. I want him to chase his dreams if he can. The preparations to attend school are advancing steadily. I've been making medicine with an unusual medicinal herb that I found on the mountain and selling it. Using this method, I may just be able to pay the entrance fees for school quickly and with no issues. We should be able to survive these 3 years rather comfortably. One day I finally taught Dee everything I knew from Japan to Dee as if he were my disciple. There is nothing left for me to teach you. With this you've learned everything. Though I'm a 5-year-old child, my training is constant and ongoing. Even if I were to be strolling through the forest or a mountain path, I'm constantly training. Today a new world is being introduced to me. I'm running in the sky. To explain why I'm so happy, first have to talk about two spells. One is Boost. Its effect is to improve physical strength. Once it's activated, I can surpass the limits of the human body, increasing my speed by several times and making it so I can crush rocks with my bare hands. Naturally, a person's body isn't suited for such actions. However, this problem is averted by coating the body in a layer of mana. It reveals the user's potential, but since the mana consumption for the spell is extremely intense, there are very few masters of the spell. Since the spell doesn't have any effects that would place it in an attribute class, it's considered a colorless spell. Boost is a spell that can even be found in my magic tome. As I experiment and examine the spell, I notice that its effect is literally to cover the body in magic power. You can think of it as a magic power mecha suit, yet the main problem with the spell is how much energy it wastes. In my previous life I had quite a bit of medical knowledge, and because of that I understood the human body. This all helped me squash the useless waste. I know the point that you should protect by the situation from a flow of the blood, the expansion and contraction of the muscle, and the movement of the body's structure during strenuous action. The result of adding this knowledge to my trials allowed long-term use of Boost. I have the power to send a goblin flying with my fist and reach the lake to gather demon grass in a few minutes. It almost feels like I'm no longer human. The other original spell is called Air Step. As revealed by the name, the spell makes it so that you can create a temporary scaffold in the air, though it only lasts for 2 seconds and disappears immediately after. Though this spell will be seen as one with a major defect, I don't see it as a problem if I can just continue to make scaffolds and use them to fly. When I first made the spell, it was intended to be used for flying, but due to it being difficult to adjust the speed, my body was forced to taste the spell's recoil, so I gave up on it. Eventually I settled on this method, which can be both fast and slow due to the use of footholds. By practicing these two spells, I can now move at the speed of a car while in the sky. I'm able to ignore wind pressure due to the Boost spell, increasing my physical endurance. The destination of my flight was the neighboring country, separated by the mountains. It is still the Mephisto continent, but if you cross the ocean then you'll meet the mountain, which is the edge of the continent. I practiced magic, even while the sea, which lies as a border, crossed to my side of the horizon. After I went there for the first time, I learned that it was called El Dorado. It's a place with its own unique culture, but aside from that there aren't that many differences from the rest of the Mephisto continent. I've heard that there is a port city in El Dorado that is frequently traded with. It would take a normal ship about 2 days to go back and forth from there. That being said, it seems to only be a trip that would only take an hour from here. However, the sea that separates us is the home of a demon that attacks when storms roll in, and can sink a ship in a matter of minutes. There is also a formation of cliffs that block the edges of the continent and make it difficult to find a place to land. In other words, one would be stuck with no option but to land in an area of the downtown shopping area. Yet these problems are completely irrelevant to I, who can freely run through the sky. They are issues for the mules that sail ships. My curiosity leads me to fly to the new continent. I flew in the sky without a serious problem, and several minutes later, I arrived at the neighboring continent safely. The half remains in magic. I have about half of my overall mana pool, which should be enough to get me through any foreseeable issue. The wide expanse of the forest is spread before my view and gives the impression of looking at the Mephisto continent in reverse. I thought this not to have any problem and expected it without being able to extend a trip to the town by trouble when Father heard it when it was the other side. The town feels deserted. I've no choice when there are no other sources of life around. Where else do you look but to the sky? I shut my eyes and counted to 3, recovery complete. Though it seems like a joke, magic can be recovered quickly by harmonizing with the mana in the atmosphere. The book didn't mention anything about this method, and it seems that Noel can't use the technique either. I'm still unsure why. There are no issues with her body, and she uses the right method. Well, in the end the answer will reveal itself in time. I begin to run in the sky again. Without having any particular destination in mind, I fly between the trees while going against the wind. I slow down as I start looking for a village while feeling a cool, comfortable breeze, but I can't find anything like that. This forest is really wide. If anyone enters on foot without preparing, they'd surely get lost. As I advance through the forest, I finally see an end to the trees and decide that is a good enough sign for me to take a short rest. I take a seat on the branch of a particularly enormous tree. I take out a container of water from a bag I had slung over my shoulder and look down on the forest beneath the trees, keeping up a degree of caution. Something feels wrong. There isn't a sense of murderous intent. It feels like a hidden entity is moving about in the area. The wind seems to have gotten stronger, a sign that doesn't bode well. For now, should I continue to examine the situation? I turn in the general direction of the discomforting feeling and activate a search spell. It works similar to a sonar. The principle is the same as when one would throw a stone on the surface of water and observe the ripples. The spell itself sends out a sort of wave made of mana that looks for mana in the area. The main fault with this spell is that it notifies the other party if they're picked up by it. However, that notification is mostly an unconscious sense, and from Noel's testimony is unlikely to give away my position because I can blend in with the area's mana flow. Since discretion is important when scouting for enemies, this spell will be labeled as worthless. The ripple of mana is shown in my mind. Though this search inserted an image of all the mana perceived in the area, it also means that it includes the animals and all of the innumerable living beings in the area. There seem to be 6 reactions from humans in the area. Even though this spell hasn't located the cause for the discomforting feeling from earlier, I finally find the person. I store my water back as I find it and jump down towards where the person is. By the way, this is my first encounter with someone who's not an attendant of mine, and it may be a bad idea to suddenly appear and casually greet them. The other party could be a bad person who'd do unspeakable things to a 5-year-old like myself. The possibility of something strange happening is too high for me to not worry. First I'll observe the other party, and from that determine whether or not I should appear before them. Though there are 6 people that were revealed in my search, the leaves crushed under their feet reveal another person, one who is putting in the extra effort not to be noticed by them. I don't think the group will have an easy time finding the individual. In the worst case scenario, it'll end up as a brawl and I should be able to get away by running through the sky. I doubt they'll chase after me in the sky. I land in a small distance from the reaction point and move over to them quietly. If the individual gets away from the reaction point and sneaks away for a while, the group most likely won't find them. I try to avoid remembering a spy mission I had in the past. Because a strong wind blew past the trees, the sound of my movement is diverted. I advance in his slow creeping fashion until I finally reach the gap of trees. If they're in such a place, with no family or any other people, what kind of person are they? That person seems to be an elf who lives in the forest. Moreover, they have long ears that point out sideways, and long flowing hair that shines in an emerald green light. Their hair parts before their beautiful emerald-colored eyes, and in combination with their nose and mouth gives off the impression of an astoundingly beautiful woman. The way her body has curves highlighting all the right places emphasizes her sex appeal. She is an attractive woman who I want to get close to by any means. She is an absolute beauty no matter how one would look at her. Her breathing is rough as she desperately clings to a tree branch, beads of sweat are growing abundant on her face as she tries her hardest not to fall. Her mantle is in tatters, allowing the clothes that lie beneath to be easily seen. She has on a light breastplate made from some sort of leather. She wears a bright green skirt that starts just under her navel with a slit in it that exposes the skin beneath the skirt's hem leveled off just above the knee to give freedom of mobility. There were many flesh colors on her clothes. There is a small cut on her right arm. It doesn't seem to have been treated at all, judging by how blood is still finding exit from the wound. It doesn't seem to be a very serious injury. The question is whether or not it is poisoned. I know you're there, show yourself. The elven female raises her voice in a threatening manner. The target of her accusation isn't me though, it is the group of 5 pushing past the trees without reservation. She gives them a sharp glare, which is returned by the flight of a shining object from the bosom of one of the group's members. It whistles through the trees and lands quite close to me, and to make sure I won't be discovered I collect it. The object is a knife, as expected, with something written in paint on the blade. The group of 5 closes in on the elf's location as I am examining the knife. All of the members of the group are men that look to be thieves or bandits. Their breastplates are made from superior iron and it seems as though they have skin of considerable toughness as well. A man wearing an eye patch who appears to be the leader takes a step forward. As he did, the entire group seems to have a vulgar smile float to their faces. I don't want to be acquaintances with such people. The elf, in this situation, would be, in every way, a far better choice of friend. But wait, is this situation itself not the scene of a crime? Let's continue observing their actions instead of moving based on appearances. This is great. You think it was by my knife that was poisoned? Naturally, it looks like it stopped moving. We should wait and see if it stands or if it's just bluffing. That's a good idea. So what'll we do if its body is cold? Shall we use our own bodies to heat it up? Ha ha ha. No, don't you actually want that? Why else would you stop to wait for us after trying so hard to escape? Not to mention they sell hire if they're virgins, but how about we let you keep it company if it consents? Well, there's no evil more splendid than the definite and obvious kind. I admire that their convenient delusion can reach such heights. Since I've confirmed that they are in fact enemies, I'm ready to intercede anytime in order to help Elf-san. Take this chance to act out your desires. I have called you forth. Elf-san shuts her eyes and concentrates. This is magic. Yet, something is different. There doesn't seem to be an aria to her spell. A discomforting feeling can be felt from ahead of me, coming from the elf. To mediate and rush. Oh wind! Become a blade. As she raised her hand in declaration, the wind seemed to accelerate into a storm, bashing into everything. Even I, behind her, seemed to float for a moment, but I use string. It flies to a nearby tree where I fix my posture. I think that the men ought to be blown away, but as the wind begins to settle down, and the leaves stop cascading my vision, I see that they are simply scattered. A painful expression floats on Elf-san's face as she realized this. TCH. Magic. You think we'll be scared by that? Who do you think we are? Chase after it. That poison not only paralyzes the body but also obstructs the concentration of magic. If it were an ordinary man they wouldn't be able to move, but not an elf. Is she on the ground or in a tree? She seems to have been playing around with us for a while. Aw, crap. It's rare for someone to catch an elf. Bastards. It's for me to decide. Go after it now. What'll you do if it's already hurt? Any damage to it will hurt the price, so be sure not to overdo it. The men move closer to her with ugly smiles on their faces. She refuses to wait for her fate, grabs a knife and holds it to her own throat. If you get any closer, I'll kill myself. I'd sooner die than be captive to vulgar brutes like you. Oi oi, is it okay to wait to be killed? I said so, didn't I? You've got a good head on your shoulders. That is. Elfsan shakes her head and averts her eyes. The moment she lets her guard down, the man who appears to be the leader lunges out with his hands. Ha ha ha. No matter how strong you are, if you leave an opening, it's all over. The person himself may be terrible, but his skills are terribly competent. The chance that Elfsan had is shattered instantly, and it seems they have the ability to shoot out several blades at once. However, Elfsan is not defeated quite yet. She fixes her posture. He flicks out 2 knives. Then 4 more, which she dodges by twisting her body. The knives are avoided and end up sticking into the back of a tree. One of them ends up close to me, but I move to the side to dodge it. The skill that she shows while on the brink of defeat is remarkable. Yet the knife isn't normal. The fact that Elfsan is having a hard time getting up, even after leaving the leader's grasp, is evidence. The effect is great, no? It may be a slow-acting poison, yet it's distinguished for its effect. A moment ago you were prepared to make a run for it, but now you can't move. You vulgar trash. Use your head for a moment. You don't want to die, do you? It's safe. This man is strong, but the price for his protection grows by the second. Then, you should take the original proposal. So that's what you wanted all along. It'd be troublesome if I were to act violently and hurt your men. Her. That's right. How about I show you how an adult has a good time? It may feel so good you'll be in heaven though. Ha ha ha. Unpleasant. I died, but it sure wasn't heaven. Woohoo-dee. Gua. A knife runs into a hand of a leader, and I rush to the front, Elfsan entering from the trees. The situation is my handiwork in several ways. I appear before the group of men. The hell? You bastard, where do you come from? Wait a sec, ain't you just a kid? Where do you come from? Though they are shocked by the sudden appearance, when the group learns it is a child who stopped them, they cast hateful eyes upon him. I don't really care that they want to taste it. It would be an embarrassment to me if they went and harmed Elfsan. Shall we fight? That all. Looks like I've been given up on by these vulgar people. You did well, you shitty brat. Go away, fucking brat. Mind your own business. Don't take me lightly because I'm a brat. I'll fucking kill you. Was it not enough even though I attacked and provoked them? Elfsan is desperately shouting towards me while struggling to stand. From her eyes I can tell that she is desperate and worrying purely about me. I'm a good person and I'd feel bad to know that I left her here as I escaped. Though I'm happy for your feeling, please wait a moment. Hello, Father San, I'm here to fight the bad guys. I shout greatly at the man while shaking his hand. They never would have thought a child would be in this forest. As such, they are convinced that I'd be with a guardian. If such a child shouts that there is father behind them, it's natural to show precaution and look back. Then what now? As they turn, I spot my chance. The moment they turn, I use boost on one of my arms, swinging it at twice the speed. Gah. Gah. Damn. I throw the knife into the feet of the men. This is of course the boss's knife from earlier, still coated with poison. I collect Elfsan with string and latch her onto a tree secretly. This is a lie, right? I turned around for a moment. What happened? You damn brat. By the way, just so you know, these are your knives from earlier, so you must know, is the poison deadly? B-boss, antidote, give us the antidote. Shut up. I've got the antidote right here. Oops. I used string to steal the leather bag from the leader's bosom. Inside are 2 glass containers that I confirm, despite the dumbfounded expression of the followers' faces. One is a malicious color, and the other has detoxification written on it. So this is the antidote for the poison. However, it looks like he only has enough antidote for one person. There isn't much in here. Certainly not enough for you lackeys. That true boss. TCH, there isn't enough. I see, so that's what you were planning to do when we got the reward, you'd poison our drinks. That wasn't the plan. That's all nonsense from that brat. Your weakness as a leader is laughable. Oh, I intended to fan it a little more, but they collapse earlier than expected. It seems that their dissatisfaction with everyday life has all blown up at once. Instead of being a leader that leads with charisma, he did so with abuse. As they fight between themselves, I return to Elfsan. Are you safe? Yes, but who are you? That will have to wait till later. First we'll see to your wound. Though Elfsan still seems to have doubts, she can barely move and waits as I treat her. The side of her arm with the wound is okay, but the blood has yet to staunch due to the deepness of the wound. I can't afford to wait for the blood to stop, so I pull out a towel from my bag and prepare for emergency treatment. Hey! The damn brat is with the elf. Shit, kill the kid quickly. Oops, looks like I was noticed. While I am stuffing the medicine into the bag I stole from the boss, Elfsan puts her hand on my cheek. It's dangerous if you stay here any longer. I'm all right now, so you escape first. I understand. Thank you, you're a good child. A smile from a beautiful elder sister like her holds great power. I shake my head in response for a moment before slipping my arm under her body. Let's run away together. Excuse me. I activate boost and lift her. Naturally, I hold her in a princess cradle. Though the length of my arm is insufficient for the lift of an adult female's body, I used string to help support her body. And so I ran away with Elfsan.